I'd like to see Hong Kong worked out in a very humanitarian fashion. I hope President Xi can do it. He sure has the ability, I can tell you that from personal knowledge. He certainly has the ability to do it if he wants to. So I'd like to see that worked out in a humanitarian fashion. I think it would be very good for the trade deal that we're talking about. No, I think it would be very hard to deal if they do violence. I mean, if it's another Tiananmen Square, I think it's a very hard thing to do if there's violence. But I really do believe that if this weren't part of the deal, possibly something would have happened already along. I really believe that the media is covered a little bit differently than that. So we're looking really not to do business with Huawei. And we're actually talking about not doing any business because, again, the rest of it is not national security, but it's very difficult to determine what's coming in, what's not coming in. It's still Huawei. So we'll be making a decision over that in the not too distant future. But it's a little bit the opposite of what seemed to be reported this morning. So we had a lot of meetings yesterday on Afghanistan, on the economy, which is doing very well. We have the strongest economy by far in the world. The tariffs have cost nothing, in my opinion, or certainly very little. We have import prices from and through July, all the way through July, and they're down 1.8%, so that the import prices have actually gone down. China is eating the tariffs because of monetary manipulation. Also, they're pouring a lot of money into their country because they don't want to lose jobs. They're losing, as you probably know because you reported it, but they lost over 2 million jobs in a short period of time. And they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens, but they definitely want to make a deal. I'd like to see Hong Kong worked out in a very humanitarian fashion. I hope President Xi can do it. He sure has the ability, I can tell you that from personal knowledge. He certainly has the ability to do it if he wants to. So I'd like to see that worked out in a humanitarian fashion. I think it would be very good for the trade deal that we're talking about. And other than that, if you have any questions. Well, we're looking at Afghanistan. We're talking to Afghanistan, both the government and we're also talking to the Taliban, having very good discussions. We'll see what happens. We've really got it down to probably 13,000 people, and we'll be bringing it down a little bit more, and then we'll decide whether or not we'll be staying longer or not. We're having very good discussions with the Taliban. We're having very good discussions with the Afghan government. I think just that we've been there for 19 years. We're like a police force, and that's about it, frankly. I think it's very important that we continue intelligence there in all cases, because it is somewhat of a nest for hitting us. If you look at what happened with the World Trade, it essentially came out of Afghanistan. Most of the people, I think, they may not have come from Afghanistan originally, but that's where they were taught. So there's a big argument to be made, and I buy that argument. You know, it's very tough when somebody says, well, this is a big breeding ground, and it is a breeding ground. And we have things under control very well with a small force. We can probably make it a little bit smaller, and then we'll decide. It'll depend on the Taliban. It'll depend on the Afghan government. But there is a case to be made, and the case also is that we're going to be leaving very significant intelligence behind for just the reasons I stated. I can't comment on that. Can't do it, Maggie. Well, I think President Xi obviously has this in mind because he probably would have acted faster. So I think he has at least something in mind having to do with trade, because it's something he could do fairly easily. It could be, unfortunately, very ruthless. So I do think it plays on his mind, and I do think he is thinking about what I've had to say. It would have an impact on trade. There's no question about it. A little louder, Maggie. Well, Greenland, I don't know, it got released somehow. It's just something we talked about. Denmark essentially owns it. We're very good allies with Denmark. We protect Denmark like we protect large portions of the world. So the concept came up, and I said certainly I'd be, strategically it's interesting, and we'd be interested, but we'll talk to them a little bit. It's not number one on the burner, I can tell you that. Well, a lot of things could be done. I mean, essentially, it's a large real estate deal. A lot of things could be done. It's hurting Denmark very badly because they're losing almost $700 million a year carrying. So they carry it at a great loss. And strategically for the United States, it would be nice. And we're a big ally of Denmark, and we help Denmark, and we protect Denmark, and we will. In fact, I'm supposed to stop. I'm thinking about going there. I'm not necessarily definitely going there, but I may be going. We're going to Poland, and then we may be going to Denmark. Not for this reason at all, but we're looking at it. It's not number one on the burner.
Mr. President, we're back to Afghanistan. Two questions on that. First of all, have you seen the reports about the suicide bombers at a wedding? They're 26-year-old. So why then should you trust the Taliban to keep Afghanistan safe from terrorists when you have suicide bombers?
Well, I'm not trusting anybody. Look, I'm not trusting anybody. It's a horrible situation that's going on in Afghanistan. It has been for many years. Russia tried to do something, and at the time they did it, they were the Soviet Union, and now they're Russia. They spent all their wealth on trying to do something in that land. There have been many, many great nations in that land. It's a difficult territory. There are a lot of very good people there, I will say, but they're also good fighters. We have it very much under control as far as what we're doing, but the rest is, a lot of bad things happen in Kabul. A lot of bad things are happening in Afghanistan, and some very positive things. But we're there for one reason. We don't want that to be a laboratory, okay? It can't be a laboratory for terror. And we've stopped that, and we have a very, very good view. I mean, some things are going to be announced over the next couple of weeks as to what happened, who's been taken out. A lot of people have been taken out that were very bad, both ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
Senator Lindsey Graham said that for you to withdraw the U.S. troops from Afghanistan and accept the Taliban would be the biggest mistake since Obama's magnitude.
Well, I guess that means Lindsey's a very tough man, isn't he, huh? Okay, what else? No, that was reported, and actually it's the opposite. Huawei is a company we may not do business with at all. And it was sort of reported, I think, the opposite today. I was surprised that we are open to doing business. We're actually open not to doing business with them. So I don't know who gave the report. Now, they have little sections of Huawei, like furniture and other things that we could do, but when you cut out sections, it gets very complicated. What's being sold, what's coming in. So at this moment, it looks much more like we're not going to do business. I don't want to do business at all because it is a national security threat. And I really believe that the media is covered a little bit differently than that. So we're looking really not to do business with Huawei. And we're actually talking about not doing any business because, again, the rest of it is not national security, but it's very difficult to determine what's coming in, what's not coming in. It's still Huawei. So we'll be making a decision over that in the not too distant future. But it's a little bit the opposite of what seemed to be reported this morning.
How were your meetings at Bedminster? How was your meeting with Tim Cook? Did you meet with other folks? Who did you talk with?
I had a very good meeting with Tim Cook. I have a lot of respect for Tim Cook. And Tim was talking to me about tariffs. And one of the things, and he made a good case, is that Samsung is their number one competitor, and Samsung is not paying tariffs because they're based in South Korea, and it's tough for Apple to pay tariffs if they're competing with a very good company that's not. I said, how good a competitor? He said they are a very good competitor. So Samsung is not paying tariffs because they're based in a different location, mostly South Korea, but they're based in South Korea. And I thought he made a very compelling argument, so I'm thinking about it.
Sir, there's reporting at CNN that Larry Kudlow may be leaving the company.
Well, I hope not. I love Larry Kudlow. I think he's done a fantastic job. He has been going through health problems, as you know. But I watched him this morning. He was terrific. I think Larry's a fantastic guy, but I haven't heard that at all.
And are you doing any planning, or are you going to be directing your administration to plan for the possibility of a recession?
I don't see a recession. I mean, the world is in a recession right now. And although that's too big a statement, but if you look at China, China's doing very, very poorly. they've had, I just saw a report, they've had the worst year they've had in 27 years because of what I've done, and they want to come to the negotiating table. You know, they're having companies lose, I mean, they're leaving. The companies are leaving, and they're laying off millions of people because they don't want to pay 25%. And that's why they want to come to the table. I don't think there's another reason other than President Xi, I'm sure, likes me very much, but they're losing millions and millions of jobs in China, and we're not paying for the tariffs. China is paying for the tariffs for the 100th time. And I understand tariffs very well. Other countries, it may be that if I do things with other countries, but in the case of China, China is eating the tariffs, at least so far.
But a lot of economists say that you should be preparing for a recession, that no president is immune from a recession, and that it's malpractice for the government not to be doing something.
Yeah, Phil, honestly, I'm prepared for everything. I don't think we're having a recession. We're doing tremendously well. Our consumers are rich. I gave a tremendous tax cut, and they're loaded up with money. They're buying. I saw the Walmart numbers. They were through the roof just 2 days ago. That's better than any poll. That's better than any economist. And most economists actually say, Phil, that we're not going to have a recession. Most of them are saying we're not going to have a recession. But the rest of the world is not doing well like we're doing. The rest of the world, if you look at Germany, if you look at European Union, frankly, look at the UK. I mean, look at a lot of countries that are not doing well. China's doing poorly. Parts of Asia are doing poorly. We are doing better than any country or even area anywhere in the world. We're doing great. And our consumer is really, really strong. And it looks like they're going to be for a long time. Also, when you go in and analyze the curve always means that about 2 years later, maybe you'll go, and that's a long time, 2 years. But I don't think so. Interest rates are low. I think I could be helped out by the Fed, but the Fed doesn't like helping me too much. But frankly, we have money that's pouring into our country because they want the security of the United States. We have billions and billions of dollars daily that's pouring in. We've never had anything like this because they want to come into the United States. That's a great thing. That means we can loan that money out. Mortgage rates are at an all-time low. Borrowing costs are at an all-time low. It's probably a great time. I told Secretary Mnuchin that this is a great time to refinance our bonds or some of our bonds. The money is pouring into the U.S. like never before and like no other country has ever experienced, including China money. China money, everybody, they're all coming into the U.S. So we've never had anything like it. I think our economy is very, very good. Well, I'd be prepared for it. We can do a lot of things, but if it slowed down, it would be because I have to take on China and some other countries. Look, you have other countries that are just as bad as China the way they treat us. You take a look at what's happening with the European Union. They have barriers, they have tariffs. Take a look at I'm not going to mention all the countries because you'll be surprised. But we're treated very badly. A lot of them by our allies. We're treated very badly. When all of that normalizes, we've got a rocket ship. Our country is going to be stronger by far than ever before. If I wanted to make a bad deal and settle on China, the market would go up, but it wouldn't be the right thing to do. I'm just not ready to make a deal yet. China would like to make a deal. I'm not ready. No update other than Iran would like to talk. Also, I have to say also, China wants to talk, but Iran would like to talk. They just don't know quite how to get there. Look, they're very proud people, but their economy is crashing. It's crashing. Inflation is through the roof. They're doing really badly. They're not selling oil. We put the sanctions on. The oil is selling much less than we thought. It's like a trickle. And they very much want to make a deal. They just don't know how to call because they're proud people, and I understand that. But I have a feeling that maybe things with Iran could work out, and maybe not. If you notice, they haven't taken any of our boats. They haven't taken our ships. They've taken ships, but they haven't taken our ships, and they better not. But I will say this. I really think that Iran wants to get there. They have a great potential. I say this about North Korea. North Korea has tremendous potential. Also, Iran has tremendous potential, and we can do something very fast. but they don't quite know how to begin because they're proud people. They're very proud people, but their country is crashing. Their economy is a disaster. They've got to do something, so let's see what happens. So Congress is working on that. They have bipartisan committees working on background checks and various other things, and we'll see. I don't want people to forget that this is a mental health problem. I don't want them to forget that, because it is. It's a mental health problem. And as I say, and I said the other night in New Hampshire, we had an incredible evening. I said, it's the people that pull the trigger. It's not the gun that pulls the trigger. So we have a very, very big mental health problem, and Congress is working on various things, and I'll be looking at it. We're very much involved. We're very much involved in looking at what they're studying. Well, we're going to look at a whole list of things, and I'll make a determination then. But I will say, Congress is now, as you know, meeting in a bipartisan way. We'll see what happens. A lot of things are happening on the gun level. A lot of things are happening. But you have to remember also, it's a big mental, I was talking about mental institutions. They closed so many, like 92% of the mental institutions around this country over the years for budgetary reasons. These are people that have to be in institutions for help. I'm not talking about as a form of a prison. I'm saying for help. And I think it's something we have to really look at, the whole concept of mental institutions. I remember growing up, we had mental institutions. Then they were closed in New York, I'm talking about. Many of them were closed. A lot of them were closed. And all of those people were put out on the streets. And I said, even as a young guy, I said, how does that work? That's not a good thing. And it's not a good thing. So I think the concept of mental institution has to be looked at. Unrelated to that, I believe that the concept also of voter identification has to be looked at, because you can't have great security for the voter. People that vote, you can't have that national security unless you're going to have voter identification. It's something people have to look at very strongly. Jonathan?
Can you say who you golfed with, sir, and who else you met with at Bedminster? I know you did a lot of work.
Yeah, I did. We had a lot of meetings, and the golf was the least of it. I played 2 days. The golf was the least of it. I don't care about, look, I like golf, it's fine. It's so unimportant to me. Usually I'll play with senators, I'll play with people where it can help. Golf is not important from that standpoint, other than it's a little form of exercise, and that's not so bad.
On Taiwan, any answer on your response, rather, on the sale of that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I've approved the deal. The deal is approved, got to be approved by the Senate, but I've approved the deal. It's $8 billion. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of jobs, and we know they're going to use these F-16s responsibly, but we approved the deal. A lot of money, and it's a great aircraft, and we really believe, or we perhaps wouldn't have done it, they're going to use it very responsibly, but it's tremendous numbers of jobs. It's $8 billion.